Imagine you're some middle school child talking with your mates about your dream game idea. Maybe it's something like an action strategy RPG with deep customization, branching story paths, near infinite replayability, lots of micro and macro level decision making. Maybe it's a tactical milsim mixed with management game and story driven experience. Maybe it has big titty anime girls with guns, but also spaceships and robots and magic. Maybe it even has pirates and ninjas, all in a post-apocalyptic sci-fi fantasy setting. Well, X-Piratez is literally that fever dream game made real, and dangerously based as well if any Redditors' accounts can be relied upon. Now, I've talked about X-Piratez before on this channel and did a bit of a let's play on it. However, I never really got too deep into the game, mostly due to being unwilling to spend so much time editing out all the lewd content for the sake of the liberal scum at YouTube HQ. However, now I have far more free time, so I thought I'd revisit one of the top XCOM mods out there, and honestly, one of my favorite standalone games in general. X-Piratez is a lot of things, of course, but it's not really politically correct in the slightest, perhaps infamously so. It's definitely not a game most normal friends would proudly play for everyone to see. The sheer amount of full nudity and generally lewd artwork makes a Thanksgiving family play sesh a little bit awkward, I think, for most people. However, for me, I appreciate the tone of the game and that of its community. It exudes a sort of, masculine energy, similar to classic 20th century sci-fi, in my opinion. And in this way, it carries on the spirit of OG XCOM, at least in some sort of perverted way, far better than any modern game does, including new COM. Playing X-Piratez feels like playing through a pulp novella, and I get the impression from the forums that this was the original intention, alongside just wanting to throw literally everything at the wall to see what stuck. The result is a serving of not just a delicious antipasto, that being a little bit of everything to nibble on, but eventually as the game opens up, a full course meal from the primo, the secundo, all the way down to the digestivo, where you're finally getting boots on the ground in Cydonia. Not to mention, my opinion, the offensive and lewd packaging provides some built-in gatekeeping, which helps retain the largely devoted community. Unlike OG XCOM, however, this is not really a game you can or should rush. I guess you can rush it if you really want to, but I really don't think you should if you want to really enjoy what it has to offer. It's best played, I think, slowly, and unless you're extremely experienced with it, there are so many twists and turns that can really easily misdirect you. For good or for ill, there are a lot of research and story dead ends, or even somewhat hidden paths that take you forward. While there isn't a progression locking bug or anything like that, like in the original Terror from the Deep, where the wrong research order or not capturing a specific alien in time could mean just game over, there are definitely ways you can destroy your own progression unintentionally without realizing it. However, this is, of course, basically your own fault for being a dumbass captain. As an example, in the early game, selling certain key items from your initial base can make progression basically impossible and force you to restart. But hey, you sold them, bro. I don't really get upset at stuff like this myself because I kind of quite like punishing stupidity, and I'm also a natural hoarder myself, so I tend to just keep literally everything in case it's useful, like a good pirate should.
Do what you want cause a pirate is free. You are a pirate.
There are a lot of design choices like this throughout the mod, giving me the impression of digging for some sort of esoteric knowledge while I'm playing when I try to figure out something new. In terms of difficulty, I'd say X-Piratez is not that punishing or anything. Honestly, I've always found the difficulty curve to be fair and enjoyable compared to even something like vanilla Terror from the Deep, which can be punishing at really high levels. That being said, I'd recommend against playing on the lowest difficulty if you do find it a bit difficult. Just because if you click the earliest setting, it locks you out of a lot of fun content. If you really want to try this mod and you don't want to stress too much, you don't want to play on a higher difficulty level, maybe choose the second lowest setting, which has all the content and is still not that difficult so long as you have some experience with the original XCOM games. I really wouldn't recommend Iron Man, however, since this game is really long and complex. It's really not worth losing your run to a bug or something, so just delete your save file if you really want to run an Iron Man style game. As I mentioned, this mod is incredibly long. Arguably, you can invest hundreds of hours into a run and still not see everything. But that being said, the story is still fairly loose, and it's more of a sandbox with a narrative providing a bit of framework to guide you forward. Really, you can approach things however you want, as slowly or as rapidly as you want. It really caters to a wide range of playstyles and has far more strategic and tactical combat depth than the original XCOM does. For a more general overview of the story, however, it runs something like this. X-Pirates takes place in an alternate future where humanity lost the first alien war, and the Empire of the Star Lords took over the planet, terraforming it and converting it into just another province in their galactic empire. Now the alien overlords have largely turned their eyes away from Earth, leaving it more or less a post-apocalyptic wreck, with only a modicum of what we'd recognize as advanced civilization left upon it. As much of the place is infested with mutants, monsters, bandits, and other sort of dangers. That being said, there are still humans on Earth, and the governments of the planet have some degree of autonomy simply due to the generally unconcerned nature of the Star Gods' rule of their vast domain. So long as things are fairly orderly, trade networks are maintained, and violence is more or less contained, they largely don't care what the local governors do. This is where our story starts. The initial team, or GALs, are all female super mutants called Ubers that are stronger and faster than a baseline human. They escape from a laboratory in a deep underground military base and eventually find their way to an old abandoned XCOM facility from the time of the first alien war. From here, they begin to set up operations as yet another small-time bandit crew, hoping to eventually grow into a full air pirate outfit, and perhaps eventually crime lords of the planet. From here, it's hard to really define the story further, as it can branch into so many different directions depending on which decisions you make, but suffice to say your goal is to secure the loyalty, obedience, or submission of all the earthly powers and eventually destroy the Star Gods in their Martian base, thereby freeing Earth and the solar system from its long bondage under alien tyranny. If you've ever read the book Footfall by Larry Niven, it plays out something like that, except with more big titties, not space marines, and you can start your own OnlyFans to fund the war effort. Overall, it has a very light-hearted tone and never takes itself too seriously, which makes it fun for your own roleplay or just messing around in the massive sandbox. Now let's get on to actually playing the game. First off, with some ideas on how to start off. I think when you first load up X-Pirates after playing some XCOM, it can be pretty daunting. You have a ton of options right at the start and a lot of very important decisions to make within just the first year, which will basically decide the course of the rest of your game from then on. The first and one of the most crucial choices to make is where your initial base will be located. While some typical XCOM considerations are important, like being able to be centered on a large landmass and near wealthy countries who will provide you with funding, there's also a lot more to consider here. First of all, are national and regional bonuses, which kick in soon after arriving. Every nation offers a different bonus, as does every geographic region, with some being far superior to others, though most still being useful if you want to try a different playstyle. So let's start and go through the different parts of the globe, and what each can offer you if you settle there. I'll start with the different national bonuses first, as these are usually more substantial. Let's begin with the nations that, in my opinion, offer the weakest bonuses, or the worst drawbacks. These, I would say, are like the D tier nations for me at least. Most of this info is from the OpenXCOM forums, Discord, and my own experience. None of the nations are absolutely awful, but some really offer nothing unless you want a very specific playstyle. I'll start first with the Technocracy, New England sort of area. This nation gives you 20 optotronic parts and the ability to buy them immediately. This is pretty useless early game, and while mid to late game might be nice to buy them, by then, in my opinion, won't really matter that much since you can find other ways to achieve the same result. Otherwise, you really don't get any sort of boost at all settling here. Central Province in China area. You start with 75 Sectoweed plus 1 easy hybrid recruit. This makes going for a hybrid focused playstyle a bit easier, but otherwise not much of a benefit besides some slightly easier farming and medicine production. Hidden Expanse, Nigeria, West Africa area. You get 3 kits to build flak towers for base defense. This is marginally useful, but pretty niche, especially in the early game. Dark Dominion, the Southern Cone, Argentina and Eastern Brazil area. You get 3 Arcane Tomes and 2 Esoterica books. You can't really use any of these until way later in the game, but they are useful for researching demons and magic and improving your voodoo skills in general. Voodoo is sort of the equivalent of psi or molecular control in XCOM, but far more expansive in what it can achieve. Researching esoterica books also opens up some additional quest lines. I would say this, I don't know how to feel. If you're going for a very magic playthrough, I would say this is a very high D, if not C, or maybe even B tier. But for now, I'm going to put it here because for most people, I think it's going to be kind of useless. Now for the kind of meh C tier locations, Wondrous do offer something useful, but not terribly impressive for what you start off with. Let's start with Turan, or kind of Mongolia, Central Asia area. You get 3 Turanian girls who ride dire hyenas once you fully research them. You can recruit more later as well. You also unlock the raiding party mission type. And while these are all good, I really hate Turan. Not just because you get raided all the time, but the government will randomly take hundreds of thousands of credits from you, and you're stuck in the Central Asian region, which incurs a massive 800,000 credits in debt when you first start there. Maybe some people like this place. I just don't. I put them in C because the Turanian girls are good and you can get heavy weapons here easily. Also note that this Central Asian region is much larger than Turan, includes many parts of other nations as well, but you get the same debt if you begin anywhere within it, and it's not always easy to tell where exactly it ends or begins. Next is Kingdom of Canada in the basically Canada region. You get 3 government codes and a set of lingerie, which are all pretty useful, plus 50 cultural wealth, 15 databases, 10 glamour, which are not really that useful for you early game. You can research the lingerie to get some nice lore from the government codes, but otherwise pretty mediocre start. Pirate Straits, Indonesia, Malaysia area. You get 3 hoes to start off with, so you can open a brothel and begin pimping early, as well as you get some piratey kind of weapons, which are a bit marginally better than your starting weapons. Pacific Islands, not exactly a nation, but a region, though I'm not sure if parts of the Pirate Straits count as part of this region. It's kind of a meme location because you get a lot of nice bonuses, like an extremely powerful male hero with iron skin and a parrot, a flying scout pet, plus a ton of starting infamy and some early game knowledge of the deep ones. However, you are so isolated from almost all air traffic that it'll be a real struggle to get started. Eurasian Autonomy, the Russia-Siberia area. You get a free mini nuke, which is cool, but that's really all you get. You can strap it to a ballista and shoot at someone for fun. You also rarely get more mini nukes in events continuously as you settle here, and much easier nuclear research later. The biggest benefit is the regional bonuses in Siberia. You get some furs and a Yushanka hat, which you can research to make fur clothes later. You also have a chance to get Ice Damsel recruits who come with great gear, high stats, and a ton of cash when they arrive. This is like high C, low B tier for me because I like nukes, but I recognize for most people you're not really getting a lot of this. Now for the fairly decent nations. These are all B tier, I would say. They're pretty decent, or if they have a drawback, it's offset pretty well. Rogue Fields. This is in the South Africa area. This is really debatable, honestly. A big negative for me is the huge 500k debt right away, and being so far away from the majority of UFO activity. However, you do get one set of junk power armor, which can basically make one of your girls invincible early on. Also, easy access to Warlord contracts for a lot of vehicle parts, as well as many heavy weapons. Not to mention events which give free backpacks and sometimes have nice stuff inside. This location seems to be built for a sort of scrapyard focused run. I'd say this, like Eurasia, this is maybe low B, high C. A big advantage here is early game. The power arm is very nice, and the extra material you can gather over time is useful. Not to mention Sub-Saharan Africa as a region unlocks monster hunting missions right away and gives you a free parrot, which is nice. Death Realms, the Australia area. You lose 75k immediately, but gain 20 chitin plates, 10 poison, 20 demon skulls, and 10 spider silk, so you can make scale mail, longbows, and poison daggers fairly early with just a bit of research. Scale mail is one of the best options for early game armor, and poison daggers give you a nice close range power boost. Euro Syndicate, the France, Spain, Western Europe area. You start with 6 Uber maids, which increase storage and capacity of your base, as well as bring in 18k a month. You also get 6 maid outfits, which are decent starting gear, and 9 extra ray gun batteries, plus energy weapon parts, which can help you a little bit early game, as you begin with 1 ray gun by default, but very little ammo. Red Revolution. Colombia, Venezuela, Northern South America area. You start with 10 workers, which cost 50k per month, but provide a lot of extra storage space. You can also recruit 3 peasant girls with a revolutionary bonus, which is not too bad. However, peasants are pretty shitty in general, so this is really mediocre unless you take the peasant revolution path. This location seems really well tuned to playing Peasant Revolution, as you get a lot of bonus workers through events if following this path. Kind of meh otherwise. I would say this is C tier if you're not taking Peasant Revolution. Romanica, kind of Central and Eastern Mediterranean era. You start with some broadswords and quarterstaves, which are pretty good early on melee weaponry. Also nun and crusader outfits for peasants, which makes this area really well suited for maybe Peasant Revolution or male touch paths. Otherwise, again, a bit meh, though you do get a lot of loot you can sell here for some easy cash. Fuso or Japan area. I really want to put this one in A tier because I really love the cat girls, and this start makes them really OP due to cat samurai armor, not to mention a ton of Japanese melee weaponry, which is all far better than anything you begin with, not to mention samurai training. This start is also great for playing Peasant Revolution due to all the melee weaponry and armor and special training available. This is for sure A tier if playing either of those paths, but still pretty decent otherwise. Now, no country. If you choose any location outside of an actual country, you still get a pretty generic bonus, which is kind of decent. For one, you get 1 free research from a list of animal poison, spider silk, monster teeth, monster eyes, luxury fur, chitin plate, as well as you get 2 times goblin scriptures and 3 times girl guides, which unlock some further research. Now for the genuinely great locations. All these are A tier, ones where in my opinion the benefits far outweigh any cons, even if there are any. First off is the Latin Empire, kind of like Mexico, Caribbean area. A classic piratey location, plus convenient access to both North and South America makes me like this location a lot. You get a set of Old Earth books here, which is important for researching a lot of texts. As well, once you level up a bit, you will be challenged to duels from local noblewomen, which depending on your pirate's class can be very easy and lucrative, as you get a lot of nice loot from these if you win. However, if you lose, you will constantly lose infamy, which makes this area pretty shitty. I really like this area, and in my last game I played here as a dumbass captain class, which made the duels extremely easy to beat. I'd say this is a high B or low A tier depending on your playstyle. Cali Republic, kind of US West Coast area. You begin right away with 6 cat girls who you can recruit. Always additional troops at the start is amazing, and cat girls are excellent in general. They're faster than your Uber girls and more accurate with firearms. Also begin with a lot of drugs, glamour, and porn magazines, like 50 times each, because California is just based like that. Major downside, however, is a pretty large starting debt of nearly 400,000 credits, but in my opinion, worth it for everything else. Confederation, southern US area. Another favorite starting location of mine, mostly due to convenience. You get 3 big iron revolvers and a government pistol, plus a lot of ammo, which are all really great early game guns. However, the real prize here is the Sheriff's Handbook, which can give you a big research boost on a lot of firearms, especially. However, the real prize here is the Sheriff Handbook, which can give you a big research boost on a lot of firearms especially. The bonuses are not really as good as other places, but when playing in North America, I usually like a more centralized location, which inevitably puts me in this area, or maybe in Mexico if I want to reach down to South America a bit more. Ghost Gates. Basically India area. If you want to play in the center of Eurasia, this is a really good location, honestly. You start off with 52 slaves that bring in over 70k a month in income, as well as a lot of additional storage space. You also get some help with research for certain playstyles here. Just be careful where you place your base, because some areas in the north overlap with the Central Asia region and will incur massive debts there. Best location is more to the area of like Eastern India or like Bangladesh area. Now, this is getting into the top tier of A. I would say all these three next ones are A plus for me. Steel packed, kind of Chile, Western South America area. You get 3 crates of high quality weapons, which contain a semi-random number of very useful upgraded weapons, which are really useful well into the mid game, plus a lot of ammo for all of them. You also get 20 iron ore, which can be used for processing and production of something you always need. While I usually don't like playing in South America, just because of how isolated it is, this is a really great choice. Nord Federation, Sweden, Norway, Scandinavia area. A very simple bonus. You begin with 6 additional Uber girls, basically doubling your initial crew, which is excellent alone. These girls are not as great as starting 6 due to lower stats, but they're still very much worth it. Theban Hives, Egypt, North Africa area. Here you get 12 clone licenses, which you can trade for 12 assault clones, who come equipped with very high-powered carbines, plus energy shields. Extremely powerful starting force that gives you a major boost early game. However, there is a downside. They begin with a lot of negative reputation with the nearby European states, especially like Euro Syndicate and others, and you will be subject to very early base raids. Now for the absolute top tier locations. These ones give you such great benefits as to be really game changing. First of all, we'll start with the Iron Tribe, which is kind of Great Britain area. Loads of starting crafting resources. You get 8 piles of junk, 30 necroplane parts, 50 chemicals and scrap metal. This gives you a very nice resource boost in the early game. However, the biggest benefit is earlier access to old world planes, necroplanes, and hyperwave mysticism, especially the unique Supermarine Spitfire, which is easily one of the best early game interceptors until you can research the F-14 Tomcat. Air power is incredibly important in X-Piratez, so this is all the more helpful. Lastly, Black Marsh, kind of Central Europe, Germany, Poland area. You get 3 sets of chocolate plus 1 gnome soldier, plus more gnomes will join every 2 months or so. Gnomes are amazing units. They are fast, have high accuracy, insane, almost unbreakable levels of bravery, and are very small, so they can go underground missions. They have excellent voodoo powers and make for great pilots. Beyond all this, you can buy really good hover cars and weapons from Black Marsh if you have good relations with them. There are a lot of other factors to consider beyond what I mentioned here. For one, specific geographical regions will have their own material and strategic benefits. For example, I mentioned that I like the Latin Empire for both the playstyle it promotes, as well as its nice location with easy access to both North and South America. I wouldn't say geographic bonuses are so significant as to decide your location over one of the nations, aside from maybe Central Asia being uniquely terrible, but they are a nice little extra. There is so much more to cover regarding this mod that honestly I'm never going to be able to do it all in one video. What I'd like to focus on next is your recruitment strategy, as this is one of the most significant early decisions that can totally change the rest of the game. There are 5 main paths that you can choose through following their prerequisite research trees, and all of these decide which type of troops you'll be able to directly recruit on the black market, as well as which sort of events you will get to support them. The default and perhaps easiest route, due to just its simplicity, is the Gals Are Superior route, which basically focuses on the Uber Girls as your main unit, similar to your starting 6. Gals are expensive, but very tough and generally pretty capable in all their skills. This pass focuses on having a small but strong elite force, and generally can suit any kind of playstyle. The next option is we need a male touch, allowing you to recruit male soldiers who are more or less equivalent to vanilla XCOM soldiers. They are good units, and they have a lot of bonuses and events available to them. This option moves the game towards a more tactical, military tactical sort of playstyle, as you build up a force of armed and armored modern soldiers with vehicles, much like in just original XCOM. They have a lot of unique missions called SS Operations available, and you can buff them by having bonding rituals where basically your Uber girls mate with the guys in a big orgy. If you don't choose this path, you can still get male units through some events, usually some male hero, or just recruit male slaves and turn them into slave soldiers in the workshop, which is still useful, but they are far less effective this path to buff them. The other fairly easy option is Peasant Revolution, which focuses on buffing the fairly cheap but honestly terrible female peasants into a massive horde. Overall, even a buffed peasant girl is far inferior to a male soldier, but they're only like 5k each, and you can use a ritual called Rite of Rebirth to reroll their stats for something possibly better. This strategy revolves around massed cheap units led by a small few elite red guards. If you don't take this path, you can still recruit peasant girls really easily. However, they're honestly just awful without the revolution buffs. Cats for Life is a bit more difficult than the others to unlock. You need to research communications first, which means it will take a little longer to establish contact with the Cat Empire and recruit outlaw cat girls. Cat girls are excellent troops, as mentioned before when I talked about the Kali Republic. They are weaker and lower HP than humans, or especially Uber girls, but they make up for it with really high speed, high reactions, and amazing accuracy. They're the go-to sharpshooters and can be buffed a lot early game if you settle in Fuso or Japan area, so you can get the cat plate armor. They also get a unique multi-rule vehicle called the Firefox by following this route, which is one of the best early game vehicles you can get. However, it is a little bit expensive to run as it requires imported fuel that you have to purchase. If you don't choose this path, it's really quite difficult to get Catgirl troops otherwise, as they're very rare from events and often really expensive to recruit. Last main recruitment path is Life is Hybrid, allowing you to recruit alien-human hybrids. This is a bit longer of a research path, forcing you to research sectoweed first, and then take me to your dealer, which will then allow you to start recruiting bug-eye hivers in exchange for sectoweed. This is a bit more awkward than other paths where you buy units directly, as you need to trade 50 sectoweed for 1 unit, forcing you to start up a sectoweed plantation if you want to pursue this strategy. Bug-eye hivers are good with voodoo or psionics, and very useful if you want to lean heavily into that. While you can recruit bug-eyes in a normal game as well, a bit later on, this path gives them a lot of buffs and eventually allows you to upgrade them into xenomancers, who are very powerful magic users, or I guess psychics. These routes don't lock you out of recruiting other types of units, and there are many more recruits who are unlocked outside of these routes as well. For example, I mentioned gnomes before. But these paths more or less decide the main sort of gameplay style you will follow, whether hard-hitting small teams of powerful Uber gals, tactical spec-up squads of men riding in armored cars, sniper elite samurai cat girls, communist peasant hordes, or space wizards. All of them play very differently. For the last major initial choices you need to make, you have the option of choosing from one of 4 codices, as well as a captain's class. Now, you can reject these if you want for alternate playstyles. However, if I talk about every single alt route in this video, it will never end, honestly. Specifically, I'll give a quick overview of the 4 Codex choices, as well as the 4 basic captain classes. These are by far the most easy and well-rounded choices you can make. When it comes to the codes you can choose from, there are red, green, gray, and gold. Red is all about power and gives a lot of support to a more aggressive playstyle with lots of heavy weapons and melee bonuses. This path also gives support to your workshops, allowing you to produce more unique gear and improves your production overall. Overall, I'd say the focus here is on berserkers, rockets, explosives, and massive firepower. Green Codex is focused on medicine and health, as well as poison and undeath eventually. This is the biotech route, where you can eventually assemble zombie gals who are more like Frankenstein creations and can be infinitely revived after death. Not to mention drugs, which boost your unit's performance or aid in more efficient healing. This also gives you 3 additional perfect Uber girls in cryopods, who are totally equivalent in stats and traits to your starting 6. Grey Codex is the magical one, with a focus on witchcraft and voodoo, the X-Piratez version of psionics. You get immediate access to higher tier magic and ability to make sorceress armor. Spellbooks give you a variety of damage types, as well as summons in order to aid your burgeoning witch's coven. Also, one thing I find fun is the Think Tank, which is a tank with a giant brain that can use psionic attacks. Think about something like the Mastermind tank in Yuri's Revenge. Now, Gold Codex is focused on loot and treasure and is fairly balanced playstyle wise in my opinion. Basically, with enough money you can do anything. You're able to start an OnlyFans account in order to make extra cash, as well as open up your own casino for additional profit and gambling any chips you find. Best item in my opinion are the Glitter Skulls, which can rapidly restore energy and morale of your units in combat. Very important for those grueling long battles. Finally, as for captain classes, it's really difficult to give a concise summary of them, as there are multiple factors which decide what you gain or lose with each choice. Suffice to say, each class will tend to get different events or be able to react to them in different ways. The 4 primary captain classes are Dumbass Captain, Lazy Ass Captain, Jackass Captain, and Sore Ass Captain, which are closely tied to the gold, green, red, and gray codices respectively. However, feel free to mix and match them as you like to customize your build. There are also many further choices for captain classes if you reject these initial 4, including taking no class, or I guess like the ultimate captain, which is really quite challenging if you want to play that style. There's so much more I could get into, and I'll never claim to have an expert's grasp of this game. As it progresses, it really turns into just a complete hot mess of an experience with just so much chaos and so many things going on, half of which I often have no idea what they are. But it somehow all does work together to create a really wild, fun experience. Between this and the far more toned down and realistic XCOM Files MegaMod, it's hard to say which is the best OpenXCOM mod there is, but for me personally, I really love the fantastic sci-fi adventure setting and all the crazy possibilities it entails. So I really love to dig into X-Piratez again and again when I can. If you want to try the mod yourself, I'll link it below in the description. It comes with a version of OpenXCOM Extended pre-packaged along with it, but you can just remove the mod itself from the install if you already have your own OpenXCOM installation. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Feel free to like and subscribe to the channel, and check out my second channel as well, which I'll link in the description for any further follow-up videos as well as live stream VODs. But see you guys again next time, guys.